Now we'll discuss regarding subordinate legislation. In England, rules, regulations, bylaws made by bodies in pursuance to the Acts of Parliament are subordinate legislation. So also the same rules apply in case of Indian Parliament, which enacts the acts and their rules, bylaws, regulations, or notifications, etc., are considered as subordinate legislation. According to Salmon, the chief forms of subordinate legislations are 5 types. One is colonial legislation. Colonies of Britain written constitutions were formed. The statute or acts of imperial parliament also the colonial legislature. In Indian context, the federal legislature established by the imperial parliament of England. The second one is executive legislation. This power delegated by the parliament or by the common law statutes to executive authorities to make necessary rules, regulations regarding those acts which are already enacted by the Parliament. The number 3 is judicial legislation for regulation of the entire business of the judiciary or their proceedings and about judicial steps, those proceedings of courts and those rules framed by different judiciary such as the Supreme Court or the High Courts according to their day-to-day functioning and how to control their staffs, etc. Such rules are made by the judiciary and such legislation is considered as judicial legislation. The number 4 is municipal legislation. So, legislation for urban or rural county councils or districts concerning subjects like water, rent on lands, cess, house tax, etc., or the controlling or fixing taxes on ferries, golas, mandis, racecourse, road tax, etc. are imposed by those urban and rural bodies like the municipal council or corporation or panchayats or Jilla Parishad, and such legislations are considered as municipal legislation. And the 5th one, that is legislation by autonomous bodies to manage their own functions and to control their own affairs, Such autonomous bodies are universities, corporations, trusts, organizations, associations, etc. They make their own bylaws, rules, or regulations controlling their own affairs autonomously. So, such as the five different kinds of subordinate legislation as suggested by Salman, and at the present form we found municipal legislation, judicial legislation, executive legislation, and autonomous legislations are parts of modern democracies, but colonial legislation is no more a part of subordinate legislation, as colonies under the British Empire now are independent and they are separate countries having their separate independence and freedom. So there only we found supreme legislation and those other four different kinds of subordinate legislation.